Welcome to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. We're applying the mind of Christ to the matters of the day so that you can connect the eternal with the everyday and get ready to head out into the world that God so loves in ways that honor Jesus. So let's get started. This is The Reconnect.
Inspiring you to bring God back into the conversation of the day.
This is The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge on Faith Radio.
If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
Hello, my friend. I'm Carmen LaBerge. Hello. What's eating you? What's eating you? You've heard that idiom before, right? What's eating you? People ask as a way of indicating that they can tell something's bothering us. They can tell we're worried, we're upset. So, the picture is of somebody like being eaten away from the inside. What's eating you? What's consuming you? What's consuming your thoughts? So, I'll ask, what's eating you this morning? The list often includes some source of persistent worry or fear, something that's gnawing away at us from the inside. But sin is also a frequent culprit, even though we're reticent to reveal that to somebody else. Oh, what's eating away at me is this persistent sin and the effort that goes into hiding it from you every day. When sin is the source, hiding it takes up an increasing amount of energy. Secrecy breeds isolation and emotional exhaustion, and those are outward signs that other people can begin to see. They experience it. They feel us withdrawing. What's eating at you? Like a wilting flower. Concealed sin, well, it has a withering effect. I think that's the image that I will hold up as we consider what Solomon describes in terms of the effects of concealed sin. Those who confess, this verse in Proverbs promises, those who turn in repentance to God receive mercy. And mercy has a renewing power. It brings flourishing, thriving, strength to the bones, fullness to the life. So, where in the Word are you today? We want to let God speak to us through that which He's already spoken, His living and eternal Word. Our Growing Your Faith verse of the day comes from Proverbs 28, verse 13. People who conceal their sins will not prosper. But if they confess and turn from their sins, they will receive mercy. So what's eating at you, my friend? I'd invite you to confess and turn and bring it to the Lord and trust that God stands ready to heal, to cleanse, to feed, to fill, to bless, to restore. It's the promise of God in Scripture today for you. A quick headline here before our friend Austin Gravley joins us. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates made a presentation yesterday arguing that artificial intelligence is more dangerous than tech CEOs have been willing to admit. Here's a quote. AI will either be the greatest equalizer ever invented or the worst source of injustice. Bill Gates wrote yesterday in a 6,000-word essay calling for major limits on AI development. He isn't the first sort of tech entrepreneur or leader to raise concerns about the rapid advance in AI, but I think his warning does add to growing worries about the actions of some AI models and not just potential job losses, but he describes, the way that AI companies and Wall Street are pressing full speed ahead on the technology without understanding how much control we are giving up in the midst of it. He proposed taxing AI and robots similarly to taxing human workers. So if you want to build into the way the government is going to be able to pay out, let's say, I don't know, the way they're going to maybe afford to pay for universal income, something like that, right? He's like, well, let's tax AI itself. Let's tax the robots that are taking the jobs. He also wants to reserve some work exclusively for humans, areas where AI would not be allowed, robots would not be allowed. So anyway, you can read more of what Bill Gates has proposed. We're going to talk next with Austin Gravley about Meta. Meta, think Facebook and Instagram, has agreed to an $18 billion settlement with 48 state attorneys general. 48. There's more than 48 states. Okay, the two outliers, one would be New Mexico that already settled in a different lawsuit with Meta. And Florida, whose attorney general said, you know what? 18 billion is not enough. This does not go far enough. And so there are some parts of the agreement that Florida's state attorney general was not willing to concede. And maybe those are some of the things we'll talk about next with our friend Austin Gravley. You're listening to The Reconnect. Hey, our friend Austin Gravley is back. You can find him at Digital Babylon on Substack. Also, the What Would Jesus Tech podcast. Austin, welcome back to The Reconnect.
Good morning, Carmen. It's great to be with you this morning.
Thanks. It's wonderful to have you here. It seems like there's like 50 or 60 headlines we could do anytime we get together. And yesterday produced one related to Meta. So why don't you share with us the outcome of that? And then I'd like to explore the part of the settlement that actually has to do with other companies beyond Meta.
Yes. Oh, yes. There's no other way to say it. Yesterday was a historic day for social media in the history of social media. Meta agreed to settle with 48 states. There's actually some confusion on which states agreed to settle on this. With several different lawsuits that the company was facing from various states' attorneys general, and they agreed to settle them all at once, with the exception of Florida, and we can talk about that in a second. And as part of this settlement, Meta is agreeing to pay up to $17.1 billion spread out to all of these various states, and agreeing to make several changes to its platforms, so Facebook and Instagram, that social media advocates have long been advocating for. They are going to really aggressively clamp down on things such as notifications during school hours and during the night, greater requirements for teen verification and parental controls. There's a lot of things in this settlement that are things that people have wanted to see the company do for a long time. But Carmen, I got to tell you, on the whole and looking at the big picture, this is a win for Meta. I don't like to say that, but in looking at the big picture of this settlement, Meta actually comes out as the winner here, not the loser, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's staggering to think that. First of all, when you hear $18 billion settlement, it sounds like a lot. It's not actually. It's just scary to say. It's just really nothing to them. And
this is a company that spent $80 billion over 5 years just on its metaverse endeavors. $17.1 billion paid out over 10 years is not a slap on the wrist. That's nothing.
Well, and it's only, as I read it, 70% of $17.1 billion. Because, and if you're listening right now, Austin Gravley and I are talking about the settlement yesterday between Meta and at least 47, but maybe 48, we're not really quite sure, states in the U.S. that have agreed to this. There's a part of this that is actually tied to what other companies are going to do, TikTok and YouTube. TikTok completely outside, I think, of the realm of being able to influence in terms of U.S. courts. And YouTube, owned by Alphabet, think Google. And part of this is that those companies would agree to set default 1 hour time limits a day on their
Right.
apps for underage users. I got to tell you, Austin, that's not going to happen because
Yeah.
90% of U.S. teachers use YouTube for instructional purposes for more than an hour during the day, and way more than an hour in terms of the assignments kids have when they go home.
It is legally breathtaking to me how Meta somehow managed to impose penalties against companies that are not part of their lawsuit
Right.
as part of their settlement. My jaw dropped when I read
It would
that.
be like the court saying, "Okay, Carmen, you did this naughty thing," and me saying, "Yes, but I have friends who also do naughty things, and
Yes.
so even though you didn't arrest them, they're not here in court. I would like for the ruling against me to include them." Like, it's like, what?
Yes.
It is a little bit. It does
Yes.
seem a little bit crazy. Yeah.
I understand Meta's point that they are not the only player in this ecosystem. And so, in order for their changes to truly make a difference, that other social media companies do need to get involved. That point is absolutely true. But to tie your willingness to do certain things only if your competitors agree to do the same, that's not a change of heart. That's not, we recognize we've done wrong here and we're wanting to make it right.
Right,
That's
we've
trying
sinned and
to,
we're going to lead. This is not a we're
right.
going to lead. Yeah.
No, no, this is, we're trying to reset the playing field. We want to get a competitive advantage, and we're going to use our own settlement against our own lawsuits to put the spotlight on other companies. It's a brilliant move on their part, because if Google and TikTok don't go along with this, now Google and TikTok are the bad guys, even though they are under no legal obligation, as far as I'm concerned, to do what Meta is wanting them to do because of Meta's settlement. It's a fascinating legal development, and I'm actually curious to see if it even survives scrutiny if Google doesn't challenge whether they're obliged to follow this or not. But even if they resist, now the optics look bad for them, because it's like, oh, Google, you don't want to protect teenagers? Look at all the things Meta's doing to protect teenagers. Why won't you do the same thing? It's a brilliant stroke on their part.
So I feel confident that there's a lot of people who don't know just how much YouTube specifically is used in American classrooms. Curriculums are constructed around particular products that exist on YouTube. I'm thinking about Bill Nye, the Science Guy, Crash Course, Khan Academy, TED Ed, SciShow, Math Antics. Like, those are all YouTube channels that are used where students are assigned specific lectures and tutorials, not only for homework to prepare them for the next day, where you and I might have been assigned, okay, you're going to read this chapter before class tomorrow. They don't have textbooks anymore. They have Chromebooks and they have iPads. That's what's issued by schools. And so what this is saying is the amount of time that an underage person is going to have access, like it's an internet restriction. Like, if I want you to think for just a moment as you're listening, when we have talked about, let's say, Iran restricting access to the internet, or China restricting access to the internet, we're talking here about companies being forced to restrict access to their own products to a particular segment of the U.S. economy, and doing so in ways that, like, if each teacher assigns 1 hour of homework, and a half an hour of each of that is related somehow to the YouTube platform, you literally can only do your homework for 2 classes.
It is such it is such a brilliant move on their part. They knew exactly where to hit on making sure that that Meta comes out of this situation winning over their opponents. And Carmen, I before we got on the air, I was on Amazon. I needed to buy some stuff for our house, and this is why Meta was able to do this and take this hit, take this loss, and why they were able to turn this loss into a victory. Because when I opened Amazon, right there on the front page was an advertisement for Meta smart glasses, which is something Google and TikTok don't have. Meta can take this hit, to their social media business because they know they've got the lead on the next chapter of tech. And that's smart glasses and other wearable tech. And right now, Google and TikTok don't have that. So yes, some of these features I think are good things. Individually, like removing beauty filters and setting time limits during the night. Like yes, those are all good individual things by themselves. But in the big picture, this is an absolute victory for Meta. And don't let the headlines cheering this outcome lead you to think otherwise. Meta absolutely comes out on top from this.
All right, let's take a brief break. When we come back, let's pivot to missionaries in the metaverse. We talked about this a long time ago. We just introduced the concept of like, what would it look like for somebody to, I don't know, have a sense of calling to go live, quote unquote, in the metaverse, like set up shop in the metaverse and be the church there. Well, we're going to have a conversation about the development of some ministries. Missionaries to the metaverse is what we're taking up next. You're listening to The Reconnect. Hey, friend. On a random Thursday afternoon in July, I received a double blessing. The first blessing was at the DMV. I renewed my driver's license, and as I left, the woman behind that long row of numbered counters said, "Have a blessed day." I smiled and walked out the door. But just a few minutes later, I received a second blessing. It was at a drive-through window at the end of one of those big truck stop gas stations. The young woman who was serving us intentionally said, "Have a blessed day," as she handed us our bag. I stopped and said, "Wait." She asked if something was wrong with the order, and I answered, "No, I just wanted to thank you for the blessing." And she smiled. I looked at her and said, "I received the blessing that you offered. Thank you, and bless you too." Her face lit up. She was beaming. It was a moment. It was like we both recognized one another. She knows. She gets it. She's one of my people, or better yet, both of us recognizing there's a God's girl. So if you are not in the habit of offering a blessing as you part company, I commend that to you today. Instead of "see you later" or "thanks for your service," I want you to say, "have a blessed day" or "be blessed." And then I want you to hesitate. Don't turn away immediately. Hesitate long enough to see the flicker of recognition in the other person. See them seeing you. See them receiving the blessing. And in that 1 millisecond, watch redemption do its work. Watch God get a moment of glory. See the kingdom come on earth as in heaven. Friend, you have freely received. Today, freely give. If God has blessed you financially and you're in a position to pass along a portion of financial blessing to support this ministry, we'd be deeply grateful. Faith Radio is listener supported. And as you know, this ministry is changing lives. It's changing your life. It changes my life. It's a blessing. And it's a blessing that we want to see extended to more and more people. So give your best gift today at myfaithradio.com. And yes, bless you for your support. Now, put yourself in a posture to receive a blessing today. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. People don't need another piece of our mind. They need the peace of the mind of Christ. So let's go out there and give it to them. Again, thank you for your best gift right now at myfaithradio.com, or just text the word "give" to 877-933-2484. What is the Web 3.0, and how is religion adapting to it? Austin Gravley is here with us. Austin, maybe just start with those. When we talk about missionaries to the metaverse, what or where is the metaverse, and what ways is religion sort of adapting to the world of Web 3.0?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Web 3.0, if you're not familiar with that term, that is a term that refers to a lot of the new and emerging technologies that have really popped up in the past 5 years that are above and beyond things like websites and email and social media. This is the frontier of the internet, so to speak. And this would include things like NFTs, if you remember from a couple of years ago, the NFT craze that kind of took over the country for a little bit. That includes cryptocurrency, that includes blockchains, a lot of things that are very kind of abstract for most people. They tend to be things that most people find overwhelming. But one of those things would be things like metaverses or VR, virtual reality worlds, where people can engage with one another, kind of like social media, except it's more fully orbed. You have physical avatars in a digital space. You're able to walk around, look around, move around with a headset on your head. These are things that Meta has tried to do and has been unsuccessful on, but more smaller companies have been able to take and kind of build something with. And there's the question that a lot of Christians are asking is, hey, God calls us to go to the ends of the world for the sake of proclaiming Christ. Well, why not the ends of the digital world? Why not go to these metaverses to share the gospel as well? And that's a really great question and a very live conversation.
Well, and it's not just it's not just Christians. In fact, maybe not primarily so. Muslims using using platforms to draw together resources like Bitcoin to let's say build a mosque in
Right.
real life, like, right. I mean, there's ways in which um it sort of crosses over to regular life. I'm thinking here about people who are engaged in these spaces and places, and the quote unquote religion that they're offering is very much the occult, or
Right.
or some sort of Buddhist practice. And so,
Right.
talk with us about what you're seeing, and maybe make some tips and suggestions for us as people who probably are not going. I am probably not going as a
Sure.
missionary to the metaverse, but others are.
The number one thing that I want Christians especially to know is that the number of true and genuine Christians in this space is substantially smaller than the number of people claiming to be Christians in this
Mm,
space.
mm,
There are an overwhelming number of people who are investing in these technologies, claiming to be Christians, but trying to capitalize and exploit the goodwill or the gullibility of believers who get taken advantage of by promises of helping to fund ministries or help proclaim the gospel, when that's not at all what is going on here. That's especially true with AI chatbots right now. There's a lot of quote unquote Christian AI chatbots that are being set up and run by people who are not Christians, who are just looking to milk Christians for their money. And kind of the same thing is going on over here when it comes to metaverses and things like that as well. Other religions are definitely making use of this, and that is something that we want to keep an eye on as well. But I would tell any Christian who's contemplating this, you have far more reason to be skeptical of the people asking you to do this. If you don't know them in real life, if these are not people that you genuinely know and have flesh and blood relationships with, there is a very high likelihood that you're being taken advantage of in some way, and that's something you need to think about.
yeah, I think that if you just wanted to like Google influencer religion, then you're going to have a better understanding maybe of what Austin is talking about here as well. Austin, we have so many things we could cover today. You want to stick with this, or you want to pop to Amazon's new publishing rules?
Yeah, that's a fascinating conversation. And the Amazon's new publishing rules, there's a story underneath the story that I think is just very, very fascinating, and that it's a survey that a major AI company put out that shows the hypocrisy of people's attitudes towards AI. This was a survey of 7,200 adults, so it was a decent sized survey over the United States, Europe, Latin America, and the results are about as black and white as you could ask for. 46% of the people they surveyed said that they would present AI written work, AI generated work under their own name without disclosing that, without saying that. They would make it look like they wrote this, they made this, they did this. But at the same time, 54% of people said that other people, so other people must disclose AI if they used AI to write their work. Notice the hypocrisy here. I'm fine with presenting AI generated work as my own work without saying AI wrote this, but other people need to tell me if they used AI to write their own work. It's a fascinating contrast. 69% said that if I do AI generated work and if I'm in charge of that work, I get to claim credit for it as my own, but other people don't get to do that. And that's showing up in Amazon's new publishing standards where people are claiming, hey, you should have said you used AI to write this. Meanwhile, they're publishing things that they used AI to write without saying that they used AI to write it. It's just pure hypocrisy.
I wonder, it was so many people publish on Amazon. Maybe folks listening right now aren't even aware of that. But Amazon is not just a distribution house. It is a publishing house.
Mm-hmm.
For folks that are not familiar with that, can you just brief us in on that?
Yeah. So Amazon has Amazon's Kindle. It's the most popular e-reader in the world. I have a Kindle. I've read more books on my Kindle than I can possibly count. It's a wonderful ebook service and ebook provider. And as part of that empire that they've built, they've made it to where you can self-publish through Amazon your own books, your own novels, things that you want to publish, but you don't want to go through the traditional publishing cycle. You can go through Amazon and have your book or your novel available as a Kindle title in Amazon's own store. You can search for it and you can buy it. The problem is that there's a lot of AI generated content that's now filling the Kindle store. And there's a divide on should people who are using AI to write this content and then try to publish it on Amazon, should they disclose that they used AI to write it? And some people say yes, and some people say no. But if you wanted to, you could today start the process to get something you wrote listed on Amazon, and it would not take anywhere near as much time as you think it would. And it's happening far more than people realize.
Yeah, there's a lot of authors who actually launch their work directly on Kindle Direct Publishing or Amazon and then get picked up by a publisher. And you might be surprised what you have recently read in the form of a physical book that was actually somebody's self-published ebook before it was acquired by the more traditional publishing house. It is an interesting development in publishing for sure.
It's an interesting development.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's what I was going to say. It was interesting.
It's interesting to you and me. We hope it's interesting to you as well as you're listening. We don't have time to cover the three other things that were on our list. But we sure do appreciate your being with us. We love our relationship with you. We're so grateful for the things that you're paying attention to and then briefing us in on. So thanks for being with us today. That's Austin Gravley. You can find him at Passing Through Digital Babylon on Substack. That might be more words than are supposed to be in there. It's just Digital Babylon,
you got
isn't
that.
it? Oh.
No, it's passing through Digital Babylon, but Digital Babylon's its nickname.
Okay. Passing Through Digital Babylon. That's where you can find Austin on Substack, which means that's where he writes. That's where you can get his thoughts and reflections. And then you can hear him on the What Would Jesus Tech podcast. Austin, thanks so much for being with us on the Reconnect.
It's always a joy to get to talk to you, Carmen. Thanks for having me.
That's mutual. Absolutely. All right. Next up, you and I are going to talk about life expectancy. Yes, the CDC is telling us exactly what we can now expect. Oh, I don't know. Really? That's up next here on the Reconnect. I'd like to talk with you about life expectancy because it's amazing to me that when the CDC issues the statistics related to how long you're likely to live, we then talk about the incremental rise of life expectancy in the United States. Here's the way the language has changed. In the last 10 years, And I know this because I actually have my notes from 10 years ago when I did a riff on air about life expectancy. And I'm going to read it to you in just a moment because it's from 10 years ago, and I find it illuminating just how much has changed in a decade. But here's one thing I absolutely know has changed. So 10 years ago, when the headlines were released related to the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, issuing reports on life expectancy and the leading causes of death in the United States. It's an actuarial table conversation, so it's like not super good for radio, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The language did not include the words at birth. They would say life expectancy in the United States rose to, let's say, 79 years. Now, the CDC report actually says life expectancy at birth in the United States rose to, well, in 2024, 79 years. Why does that matter? Well, because 10 years ago, when I riffed on this, the language of at birth was not in there. And the conversation was actually about life expectancy in the United States trending downward. So 10 years ago, from this same story that I'm going to highlight today, because life expectancy, by the way, in the United States is on the rise. It's good. It's been rising. It's on the rise. You're going to live, statistically longer than you would have a few years ago, which seems crazy, right? But the life expectancy figure, this is from 10 years ago. This is the way it was. This is the language. The life expectancy figure is based on the year of your birth, the current death trend, and other factors. And for decades, it was on the upswing, rising a few months nearly every year. But last year, so they'd be talking there about 2015, because this is from 10 years ago in 2016. Last year marked the first time in more than a half century that U.S. life expectancy fell 2 consecutive years. So life expectancy in the United States fell consistently, actually, for a number of years, all the way down to 70, a little over 78. It's now a little over 79 or 80 if you're a woman. And here's the issue that I raised with it. The language would start, the paragraphs would start with a baby born last year in the United States is expected to live this long. And so the CDC has now adapted its language. I don't think because they heard my commentary 10 years ago that the issue of abortion is not regarded as the leading cause of death in the United States of America, but it should be. So that's really, for me as a Christian, where the rubber meets the road on this. I'm less concerned about whether or not you're going to live to be 79 or 80. I'm more concerned about the millions of people who never get to take their first breath. Because who and what the government counts actually does matter. So here's what I said 10 years ago. They don't count Americans who die as a result of abortion because the CDC says those people don't count as people. They're hiding the lives from life expectancy reporting because those unborn would so far outsurpass those who get to be born and then have a life expectancy of 78 or 79 years. The leading cause of death and, quote, life expectancy conversations, I think, provide us an opportunity to consider really deep questions about what it means to live, our expectations for life, how long we expect to live, and following from those, what do you expect to happen after you die? I think all of those are good conversations. I said it 10 years ago. I felt like it bore repeating today. I was looking at a headline related to, the CDC releasing life expectancy data, and it occurred to me that this is something I have talked about before. And so I searched for it, and there it was. And so I celebrate that you are statistically more likely to live longer than you were expected to live a few years ago. Why is that? Well, we have actually, as a people, recovered from a number of things. One of those is that fewer statistically, now, if it's affected your family, it doesn't feel like fewer. So I totally recognize that. But statistically, fewer Americans are losing their life to drug overdoses. That's a positive thing. More people are living longer. COVID obviously was a huge disruption in terms of life expectancy. But life expectancy, and again, I said this 10 years ago, I'll say it again today. Life expectancy is about more than just that number on the other end of the dash. Right? For Christians, life expectancy is about how God expects us to live life, moment by moment, day by day, to its fullness in the here and now, and with the full anticipation and in view of a life that extends forever. Yes, this life, this physical life, is one day going to come to an end. You're going to die, I'm going to die, we're all going to die. It's going to happen. So it may be, if you're blessed, it may be 80 years. And if you're already over 80, you have outpaced the life expectancy actuarial tables. But let me say this, however long I live here, I expect to live forever as a redeemed child of the King, a citizen, an heir of the kingdom of heaven. My life expectancy is with God forever. I expect my life here and now to be a preparation personally and a demonstration to others of what it looks like to be in a living, robust, eternal relationship with God. What do you expect? What's your life expectancy? What do you expect in terms of life? Living in faith every day, my little acronym for life. What's your life expectancy? What are you expecting? And are you living in a way where you genuinely do expect the unexpected and you anticipate miracles, knowing that with God, all things are possible? What do you expect to receive from God? What is your life expectancy today as you live in faith in this day? Because tomorrow's not promised. I mean, the CDC can say all it wants to say about life expectancy, but you and I'm thinking about the conversations we've had with Dr. Linda Mintle, just about the number of people in her life who have died recently. You could think about the people whose lives were literally swept away, swept off the map by a flash flood that was triggered by a melting glacier that let loose in the Himalayas. And, we're now talking about 1,300 people still missing, many of them tourists. There we're talking about the border between Nepal and China. But nobody expected that day before yesterday. Nobody expected that. Everybody expected to live, at least another week, right? I mean, how long do you expect to live? And you're like, I don't know, but at least another week. Tomorrow's not promised. So how are you going to live in faith today? What are your expectations? What's your life expectancy today? And what does it look like as a life lived in Christ, for Christ, with Christ, on behalf of Christ, to the glory of Christ, advancing the kingdom of Christ? Life expectancy conversations, based on government numbers, are interesting, and they're wrong. Because if you take into account the staggering number of Americans whose life expectancy is 0 because we never let them be born, that really does affect that would really affect the numbers. When you hear that the CDC has reported, what are the leading causes of death in America? If abortion's not at the top of the list is wrong. The list is hiding something. It's skewed. I just want you to consider that. And then I want you to consider your life expectancy as well. Life expectancy conversations provide us opportunities as Christians to enter into deeper conversations than the headline would reveal. What does it mean to live, to really live? What are your expectations for life? How long do you expect to live? And then what do you expect your life to look like after you die? I have all kinds of expectations. How about you? Let's take a brief break. When we come back, I want to tell you a good news story about a guy named Tom Schulte. He lives, just east of me in a little town called Cherokee. He's technically retired. But I want you to hear his story, because I think that he is busier doing kingdom work than he ever was doing his regular day-to-day job. We'll talk about that next. You're listening to The Reconnect. Hey, is this thing working? You know, this thing we call the Reconnect. Do you feel connected? Or sometimes, if we're honest, do you still feel kind of disconnected? Well, there's lots of ways for us to connect via social media. I want you to check that out. There's all kinds of stuff out there on social media, right? Depending which platform you're looking at. So I do want you to be intentional with the content that you choose to spend your time on and where you choose to express yourself. Faith Radio is supplying all kinds of really fun faith-based posts and videos that not only bring you closer to Jesus, but provide material that you can then in turn share on your own social feed. What are you feasting on social media? That's your social feed. I'd love for you to be feasting on what we're doing via Faith Radio's social media. It's a way for us to build community and then for us to extend the ministry to other people. So search and follow Faith Radio on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and then share the encouragement that you find there with others. You can connect with us at myfaithradio.com. All our socials are posted there as well. When you think about retirement, what are you going to do in your retirement? And you might say to yourself, I'm not going to do anything. That's the whole point. You're going to do something. You're going to do something with all of those days, all of those hours, all of those days, all of those weeks, all of those months, all of those years. And Tom Schulte, who retired to a tiny little town called Ball Ground, Georgia, in Cherokee County, after a career in the insurance business, he basically said, look, you got to do something. And you got to plan to do something. I didn't really plan to do something. But then I found out you can only play so much golf, so much tennis, so much pickleball, whatever it might be. You know, you get bored after a while. So Tom Schulte started asking the now what question. And one of the things that he volunteered to do was work with Habitat for Humanity. And so for 8 years, 1 day a week, he went and volunteered at Habitat, helping build homes for families that were getting their first real shot at home ownership. If you're not familiar with Habitat for Humanity, I love the sweat equity component of what they do. I also love the financial education that they do. It's not just about, you know, somebody handing you the keys for the first time to a home that you own. It's about what goes into being a homeowner and the responsibility related to that and treating a home as if it's yours, all of that. Anyway, many of the people for whom Habitat for Humanity in Cherokee County were building houses, and so the people that Tom Schulte met along the way were single moms with kids. And over the course of time, he started noticing what was not in their homes. You know, they would show up, it's their first home, they have some furniture. But the first thing that you buy is beds for your kids. And then you buy a TV and a couch. And he said, you know, there's something that in every one of these houses I started to see was not there. It was something I had grown up with. It was something I had grown up around. It's actually the centerpiece of our life as a family. And it was a table. After years of helping build houses, Tom Schulte realized that those four walls, that roof, even the furniture that was of like first order importance, he noticed that there was a hole like in the room. The walls are there, but there's even a light hanging over the middle of what should be there, but isn't there. A kitchen table. Schulte says it just clicked. I'll build a table. I'm going to give it to these Habitat families that we're building houses for. 4 legs, a flat top. Might not sound revolutionary, but to Tom Schulte, a table represents something much bigger. A place for the family to gather, to eat, to talk, kids to do their homework. And so what was born out of this is something called Your Family's Table. And you can actually check it out online if you want to. Your Family's Table. He builds the tables himself in his wood shop, and then he and his wife load them into this, little custom trailer, and they crisscross now across Georgia in their own truck, delivering them to Habitat homeowners, because this has gotten a whole lot bigger than Ball Ground or even Cherokee County. He says, I love delivering the tables. When I knock on somebody's door to deliver a table, I've never met them before. I don't have any clue what I'm walking into. But he acknowledges that he's delivering more than furniture. He says, look, every family has challenges. But I have learned if you sit down at a table where you can talk about it, it helps keep that family together. If we did that for one family, then we won. The table, you might be wondering, yes, it comes with seating. It also comes with a basket and a purpose for that empty basket that's not immediately obvious. When we deliver the table and the chairs, I show them the basket and they look at it. Oh, that's a nice touch, sometimes they say. And then I set it in the very middle of the table and I say, okay, I know you're thinking apples or bananas put in the basket, right? But here's what I want you to consider. When you sit down at the table, this is where all your phones go. It's a simple idea. Put the devices in the basket, in the center of the table. Put them away. Pause your social media. Make room for face-to-face family conversations. It's been 6 years, and he's built 430 tables. His retirement is beginning to look suspiciously like a ministry. But he's not earning a paycheck. He said, no, this is all about giving back. I figured you could turn your back on the needs of your neighbors. You could turn your back on Atlanta. Or you could turn towards your neighbors and invite them to your family's table. And one of the things that secular coverage is not going to highlight here is the faith component of what Tom Schulte is doing. But he gives credit for the idea to the one who is above, who has invited all of us to the family table. Come to the table. You know what table I'm talking about? I'm talking about the table of the Lord. I'm talking about the seat that's being saved for you in the kingdom of heaven. You get a foretaste of it here on earth. And so as another table heads to another home and another family somewhere in Georgia that's building a Habitat house, Tom Schulte is hoping. He's hoping it's a gathering place for meals, yes, homework, yes, celebrations, yes, and conversations that otherwise wouldn't happen because there wasn't a place for people to come together at the table. And so I just want you to consider this an inspiration today. There's a guy named Tom Schulte who has wondered, what's next? What do I do with whatever time it is that God has given me beyond the workaday world where I have labored for so long? How might my life still be an instrument of God's goodness and grace? What do I have? He's like, well, I got a wood shop. I know how to build a table. I know what a table looks like. I've sat at a table. It was the centerpiece of my family's life. Maybe it was the centerpiece of yours. What might it look like to get back to the family table? For you, that might mean getting back to church. For you, it might mean looking at that table that's got chairs around it, and only you are you're just the only one that ever sits there. So maybe it's inviting others to your family's table. Maybe it's going and picking up a table and chairs and heading off to the home of somebody, maybe a single mom who, is struggling. You know that they've got a couch and a television and they've got mattresses on the floors in their rooms, but they don't have a table. Just think how transformative it is to sit around a table together and how we look forward together to sitting at the table together in the kingdom of God. That's one of my expectations of life beyond this life. We've got another hour together of the Reconnect. We're going to talk about some headline news. I'm also going to lead off with just a personal acknowledgement that, like you, Meta has offered to turn my personal pictures into tarot cards. If you're not familiar with this, it is happening. It is now a viral feature across Facebook and Instagram, and lots of people are succumbing to the temptation. Yes. Someone made one of my pictures into a tarot card. I'm going to tell you that story next. You're listening to the Reconnect. We're going to talk about the visual Bible series and Fashioned by Faith in the next hour. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. Let us know how we can help you more fully reconnect the eternal with the everyday. We want to walk with you throughout your journey of discipleship, so let's connect. You can text us at 877-933-2484 or connect with us online at myfaithradio.com and on all our social media. I look forward to connecting with you as we each seek to reconnect the eternal with the everyday.